Hi, and welcome back to Tell Me What Happened, the podcast that features true childhood stories from people from all walks of life. I'm your host, Jay Rehak, and each week I'm going to interview a guest who's going to tell us a childhood memory and then tell us how that memory impacted his, her, or their adult view of the world. Now, each week we begin the show with a portion of Susan Salidor's classic song, The Boo Boo Blues, which you can hear playing underneath my voice right now. At the end of the show, we'll play you the entire song. Anyway, thanks a lot for listening. I really do appreciate it. Now, because this is episode 2 of Tell Me What Happened, I'm going to relate to you another one of my childhood stories. Trust me, I am going to get other people to tell us their stories. But for now, I'm going to tell you another one of my painful experiences. Now, this happened to me when I was about 10. I was in 4th grade, and as I told you in my first podcast, I was a tall kid, and consequently, they put me in the back of the room, probably so I didn't block kids' view with my head. Anyway, I was in Mrs. Kamowski's class, and she was pregnant. She liked to teach from the back of the room. She sat on this cabinet or table that was right next to where I was sitting. And I remember her legs dangling off the side. And she would lecture the class while she ate from this big bag of potato chips. I assume it was because she was pregnant, but I don't know for sure. I do know that the sound of her crunching those chips drove me crazy. And I suppose because children weren't allowed to eat in class, I think it bothered me even more to have to smell them and listen to her endlessly crunching away. So there wasn't a whole lot we could do about it. And that bothered me too. One day I had enough. I went home, I got a big bag of chips, and I put them in my lunch for the next day. The next morning, when Mrs. Kamowski moved to the back of the class and ripped open her huge bag of Jay's potato chips, I reached into my desk and publicly and very loudly did the same. Mrs. Kamowski was stunned. I remember she put down her bag of chips, she swallowed the chips she had in her mouth, and she said to me, "What are you doing?" I looked at her and I tried to look sweet and I tried to hide the smirk on my face. And I remember saying something like, "I don't know, Mrs. Kamowski. I'm just a little 4th grader, and I just do what the teacher does." I remember Mrs. Kamowski jumped off that table she was perched on. She grabbed me, she dragged me to the principal's office, and then she retold the story. Nobody asked me what my version of it was. Anyway, they called my parents, and my father had to come in for a parent-teacher conference after he got off work. When I got home, my mother sent me to my room, and I spent the afternoon shaking, knowing that my father would be full of rage when he returned from his meeting with Mrs. Kamowski. So at about 7 o'clock that night, my father burst into my bedroom holding a dictionary. "Do you know what belligerent means?" No, I stammered. "Look it up and read the definition." I looked it up and read, "Belligerent, to want war." "Mrs. Kamowski says you're belligerent. No son of mine will ever be belligerent to a teacher. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Now tomorrow when you go to school, you're going to apologize to Mrs. Kamowski in front of the whole class. Do you understand?" "Yes." Then my father took out his belt and he spanked me a number of times. The following day, I tearfully apologized to Mrs. Kamowski in front of the class. I suppose I probably meant some of what I said that day, but I also believe then, as I do now, that my actions weren't all wrong. 50 years later, I'm a school teacher, and I've never forgotten what happened to me between me and Mrs. Kamowski. You know what? I never eat in front of my students, and I try never to impose any rule on the class that doesn't also apply to me. For example, I don't check my cell phone during class because students aren't supposed to check theirs. I believe my father was wrong to hit me with a belt, although 50 years ago that wasn't so unusual, I suppose. I've never forgotten what belligerent means, and I suppose there's still a little belligerence in me now. I'm not sure, but I think everyone should retain a little belligerence, at least for the times when a perceived injustice is taking place. In the end, I look back on my fourth grade self, and I know that part of what I was doing was showing off that day, and I paid a pretty big price for it. But Mrs. Kamowski did ultimately wean herself off of eating chips in my ear. Not the first day afterwards, not even the first week, but not too much later after that. I think she did get a glimpse of the unfairness of it all. Anyway, that's my story. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please subscribe and tell your friends about Tell Me What Happened. You're also invited to send in your own ideas of stories. I'd love to have you on the show. Just drop me a note at jaycrehak@gmail.com, and I promise I'll get back to you. I'd love to hear your story. Now, as always, we're going to end Tell Me What Happened with the full version of Susan Salidor's Boo Boo Blues. Until next time, this is Jay Rehak asking you to stay safe out there and try not to hurt anybody.
I've had some boo-boos, baby. I've had the boo-boo blues. Yeah, I've had some boo-boos, honey. I've been like you. Let me see your boo-boo, sugar. That's a mighty bad boo-boo, too. I'm sure that hurts you, honey, and you're crying boo. A boo-boo in the morning, a boo-boo late at night, a boo-boo anytime at all. Well, it just isn't right. Everyone's got some boo-boos, baby. We've got the boo-boo blues. We all have boo-boos, honey. Even me and even you. I've had some boo-boos, baby. I've had the boo-boo blues. Yeah, I've had some nasty boo-boos, honey. I've been like you. Let me see your boo-boo, baby. Oh, that's a mighty bad boo-boo, too. And I'm sure that hurts you, honey. And you're crying, boo. A boo-boo in the morning, a boo-boo late at night, a boo-boo anytime at all. Well, it just isn't right. We've got some boo-boos, baby. We've got the boo-boo blues. We all have boo-boos, honey. Let mama fix it for you.